So it's just saying, prepare to live stream the meeting, setting up your meeting. Okay, we are now live on YouTube.
Prepare to live stream the meeting, setting up your meeting.
No. Both. And we are about to get started in a couple of seconds here. All right, we will get started in about 1 minute.
Okay, I sent out the YouTube link.
And we are live. Oh, would help if that was. Well, happy Sunday, everybody, and welcome on Facebook Live as well as on YouTube as we are on the Hockey Podcast. My name is Kevin Olenek. Of course, you can follow us on Twitter at podcast_hockey. You can also join us on Facebook.com, the Hockey Podcast, if you're watching there. As well as you can subscribe on iTunes, Google, iHeartRadio, and Spotify, or check out our website of thehockeypodcast.com. And we are here to recap as well as preview game 2 as the Vegas Golden Knights defeated the Vancouver Canucks 3-0 last night, and prepare for game 4 tonight. 7:30 Vancouver time, 8:30 in Alberta. And we have Tyler is with us. Hello, Tyler. How are you?
I'm not too bad, Kevin. Yes, game 3 last night, game 4 tonight. We're all confused. The extra couple of days throwing us off, but not the most festive mood around here last night. That's for sure.
Fair. We will get into that. Chris is here. Hello, Chris.
Hello.
I gotta say, I gotta kudos to your background.
Thank you.
Cool. Yeah.
In the background. Yeah.
Worked hard on the letterboard there.
Yes, I'm liking the letterboard, although it's hard to see that L, to be fair. But I like that you're keeping. I like the organization.
It's one of my strong suits.
Yes, it's not one of mine. Sean, hello.
Hello, Kevin. Yeah, it's not the best morning with the result last night. Was quite frustrated throughout most of the game, but let's hopefully they can figure this out and we can be Chris can add another W to his to his board there after tonight.
Yes. For those, so yeah, if on Facebook, feel free to comment, and if you have any questions, we'll dig into that. YouTube as well. We'll try to check out the comments on there, but we'll start with kind of Chris, and we'll start with the theme of frustration. What frustrated you last night?
Well, last night, the Vegas Golden Knights definitely looked like the team from game 1, not game 2. And they are dominant when they're playing that way. And not only that, the reffing has been, I'm not going to say questionable, but definitely frustrating this series. Like, it's not completely out of hand, but it's frustrating enough to the point that it feels like it's kiltered one way more than the other. But everyone is biased and everyone doesn't like the refs when they lose. So.
Fair. Okay. Tyler, as the ref as well, I guess maybe you'll delve on that.
Yeah, well, I mean, the call du jour last night was slashing. I mean, they were super tight on slashing. They were tight both ways. The first one was a call on Marchessault, high on the stick, not on the hands, called. And then I can't remember, I think it was JT Miller got the penalty for the Canucks, and it was basically the same penalty. So you like to see that consistency, but then that doesn't carry over to the next game. You know, the other two guys that are working the game tonight might have some other ideas as to what they're going to emphasize over other calls. So that's the frustration to me. But it's like that all the time. So I just kind of shrug my shoulders at that. But for the Canucks, the most frustrating thing for me is just not enough shots towards the net. And it feels like when they get behind in games, they almost have less urgency to get pucks towards the net, trying to set up a quality chance such that they don't, I don't know, I guess they don't want to just kind of hope and a prayer shots at net. And they did some of that. Long distance, easy, slow, lighter shots, easy saves for Leonard. But you never know. You just got to get some pucks in that. You never know what'll get through. Get some more traffic as well. Just, I don't know. The urgency didn't seem to be there. I'm with Chris. I think that, Vegas looked a lot more like game 1 Golden Knights last night as opposed to game 2. Maybe game 2 was just an off night for Vegas.
And if that is the case, I'm scared for the series.
Yeah. I'd say game one, game 3, Vegas came out and played their game. Game 2, the Canucks played theirs. I think the Canucks are a lot better than what they have shown in games 1 and 3, and Vegas isn't as good as they've come across. The big, I think, I'd like to rant about the refs. Everyone knows I'm very good at that, but I wouldn't put that as a major issue last night. They were giving out those slashing calls like they were candy, but they were giving it to both teams, and that's all you can ask at this point. But as Tyler said, I just don't know if that's going to continue on to tonight or even game 5 and on. I don't know. They haven't shown that they can have a consistency game to game, but that's what they were calling last night. And then another absolute farce of a 10-minute misconduct towards on Antoine Roussell again, which absolutely made no sense again. But if you're going to get really upset about that as well, just remember they were behind 3-0. Antoine Roussell wasn't going to play that much in the final 10 minutes of the third period. So I don't know why. As much as I want to get angry about that one, it just doesn't. If you look into it, it wouldn't have made that much of a difference to have him on there. When we get into lines, you'll see that I actually want him out of the lineup going forward. So I think it's just the Canucks just need to find a way to dictate the play a little bit more. Get that first goal. That first goal is so huge. Vegas got in game 1 and game 3. Canucks got it early in game 2. If they can get up on Vegas and they can get a couple saves early from Markstrom, then they can find out there's ways to win. They just unfortunately got a couple quick goals. Vegas got a couple quick goals on two shots that Markstrom didn't have a chance on. The Alex Tuch goal, puck was rolling and he flung it top corner. And then the second goal, the White Cloud goal, was through multiple screens, 3 or 4 players. I remember seeing a couple of people asking for Demko after the second goal, and that's absolutely just ridiculously off base.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, I mean, the second goal, it was a total shit show in their own end. I mean, Hughes missed the pass. He was caught out of position. Tanev's floating, kind of not sure where he is. Where he was, in fact, was completely screening Markstrom. I mean, just a breakdown.
Yeah, I agree with Sean in the sense that the Roussell misconduct was bullshit. But it's not the fact that he was going to be stuck in a penalty box for 10 minutes. It was the fact of the call itself. That's what I took issue with.
Well, should we talk about that some more now, Kevin?
Let's get. Well,
Yeah.
I wanted to get into the first period, but the Roussell call is a hot button topic. So let's dig into that. It's just, go ahead. Maybe Tyler, from your perspective, go ahead.
Well, I think we need to ask everybody, what reason do the refs have to be biased against Antoine Roussell? Like, I don't see any particular reason why they would have a beef with him. It's not like he's embarrassing the refs. Not from what we can see. Now, what we can see is the key. We do not have a camera following him around 100% of the time to see what he's doing, what he's yakking, whatever. And we do see in both the occasions where he's got the 10, we've seen the refs chatting with him beforehand, presumably warning him to knock it off, because he's in there after the whistle causing problems. Clearly, I mean, he's trying to. I don't think he's going to sit here and deny that he's not trying to agitate. And then when you factor in the score and the way the game's going, they don't seem very hesitant to put him in the penalty box, so there's not any more problems. But everybody's only going by what they see on TV and say it's unjust. Well, we don't know the full picture. I don't like it either, because we don't seem to see this anywhere else in the playoffs. Like, neither conference, no other teams. It only seems to be Antoine Roussell. But I don't know. I mean, I just don't see what the reason is the referees would have to be against him.
To me, it seems weird that this is happening. My thought is, and I'm sure, look, I'm absolutely certain that there's a Brad Marchand is probably doing the same thing in Boston. That's part of what he is. I'm sure that there's people doing that in other series, but it appears this Roussell, Robin, Leonard thing that's happening at the beginning of the game, I'm wondering if this is part of it a little bit. I don't know. Like, I'm sure other people are doing the same thing, assuming, like, are kind of chirping, but it must, like, there's no way to, like, for me, when you put on your Canuck fan hat, you're like, this seems really silly. But on the other side of that, I'm like, there's no way a referee would just simply look at Antoine Roussell and say, you're out for 10 minutes because of game management. There has to be more going on here, and than that. Like,
I mean, I think in game one, the score being much more lopsided, that was very clearly game management, and we saw on the TV a lot more leading up to that. The one last night was quite a surprise to me, but again, we just haven't seen everything that's going on involving him. What's happening during commercial breaks? Is he floating over the red line and lobbing, verbal jabs at the other team? Who knows what's going on? It's just, we only see what we see on the TV.
Yeah.
I mean, there's times we don't even see the puck on the TV during live action, Kevin. So there's,
true. And I think Zach Whitehorse, I love Chris Cuthbert, but Zach Whitehorse scored the goal last night, not White Cloud. So,
Oh, geez.
Yeah, so it happens. But yeah, it feels to me there's more to this going on, but it's like, it still doesn't make sense.
This is where they need to. It would be fantastic if they had some sort of statement, post-game statement from the officials, or if they had one just answering a couple questions. They could be pre-approved questions about what happened during the game. I think that'd be fantastic, and it would really enlighten the fans as to what's going on. Like, it doesn't have to be like a scrum of 8 or 9 reporters just badgering the officials for 2 or 3 calls that they didn't get right. But it should, like, if they can have like a couple pre-approved questions about certain specific calls that they can explain their thought process, or they can they can say, okay, these are the 2 or 3 calls that we feel we have to explain, and they do a statement on. It would go a long way to try and like fix this, like, what's going on miffed idea on that fans have. But like I said, that as much as I want to get very riled up about the officials and everything, last night wasn't one of the nights that I did get irrationally angry at the refs for their game. And I thought they called a decent game last night. The standard was weird, but it was good for both ways. And then the Roussell one just was weird and whatever. But he's not. He's not the type of. He's not. If they'd done that and gave him 10 minutes to say like JT Miller, then you could go up in arms because he's a big key player for the Canucks driving offense. But Roussell isn't. He's just a pest.
Okay, so which leads me to my next question around this. Because I think when Vegas has been effective, it's their bottom 6 is outplaying the Canucks' bottom 6. So my question to you is, Antoine Roussell being, he's doing his job. We know what his job is, but is he being effective?
I don't think so.
No, I think he's being more of a distraction than anything else. And I think it's time for them to bring in a Zach McEwen. Louis Eriksson's showing that he can't play at this speed that Vegas plays at. And now Roussell just can't seem to do anything that's productive. He's just being a nuisance and a distraction more than anything else. And I think it's time for them to put Zach McEwen in and shuffle around the bottom 6 to try and create some more some lines that can match up against Vegas's bottom 6 a little bit better.
Yeah,
I'd like to see that change too. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if we have anyone that even can potentially stand up to Ryan Reeves, it's gonna be Zach McEwen. Like, no one else on our team is anywhere close to that size. So if we do want to get into like the fisticuff stuff at some point in this series, it would have to be Zach McEwen in the lineup.
It's not even that for me. It's not even about fisticuffs or anything like that. Zach McEwen brings speed. He brings physical play. He brings, I like what he brings. And I think he adds a dimension that he adds the energy, the speed, and the grittiness that Roussell brings without the distraction. That's why I want.
Yeah, and I mean, I think if you're the organization, you just can't take a chance now any further on something like another 10-minute misconduct occurring. You're behind in the series. It's 2-1. It's the other thing is too is with a back-to-back here, get some fresh legs in there. That's a good one, good idea as well, and just a bit of a wrinkle for the other team to game plan against.
And for what it's worth, I wasn't trying to only show one dimension, that Zach McEwen only has one dimension that he can bring. I just was highlighting a particular.
Yeah. I just don't think that's something you need to even think about in playoff hockey. It's not about fights in playoff hockey. If he can stand up and hold his own versus Reeves, if need be, that's great. But you bring him in for everything else as first. And then that's just an added bonus if he can actually do it.
Bryce and I were talking after game 2, Bryce from Fa Center, and we were talking about how the Vegas Golden Knights seem to want to roll 4 lines. And when Ryan Reeves plays 10 minutes, they seem to be more effective. I'm trying to do a little bit more research in terms of what their actual record is when Ryan Reeves plays 10 minutes or more. But I think finding ways to get them to not play 4 lines, to me, if you're the Canucks, I think is an effective strategy. And almost, I agree with shocking news, what I'm about to say. I agree with Kevin Bieksa. I don't think you need to poke this bear. I think you need to leave. And Sean said this too. I think we need to leave him alone. Just let him do his whatever he is, and just play the game. It's not about, you're not going to match up physically with Ryan Reeves, but what you can do is, if you get out to a lead, I think they don't play four lines as much, and I think that you can actually get to, I think where the Vegas Golden Knights are weak is their defense in their defensive zone. I think their forwards are pretty strong, but I think their defense, when, on transition, they seem to be a little bit lost out there. I mean, yes, Shea Theodore is excellent. I'm not disputing that, but as a sixth defensive group, they seem to, like, when Pettersson creates it, has seemed to create a lot of transition opportunities. And, that's, to me, shorten that line, shorten their bench, and get off to a lead. I think you have a chance to win this series, and just focus on, I'm not saying that the team isn't focused on hockey, but just don't focus so much on Reeves and focus on the actual game.
And that's why they need that first goal. In game 2, they were able to keep Ryan Reeves to about 8 minutes of ice time because Vegas was chasing. They couldn't run four lines because they needed to get their offensive players out there as much as possible. When they're leading, they feel a lot more comfortable rolling four lines and rolling that fourth line out there just to grind down the Canucks and get another 45 to 50 seconds off the clock. And it's if they can get ahead, then that it becomes a lot easier to make Pete DeBoer keep Ryan Reeves stable to the bench as much as possible.
Yep. So I guess we talked about Roussell. Let's get to the first period part, and then we'll get into the second period. But what was, I'm going to kind of use this, was the turning point or the last straw or whatever? Was it the 2 goals that the Vegas got, or was it the missed not scoring at least one on the 5-on-3, or was it a combination of both?
For me, I'd say it's just not scoring on the 5-on-3. You score on the 5-on-3, and you're able to cut the lead down to 2-1, and it's a completely different game. They had another opportunity at the end of the period, big kill, and then they get a power play that straddles the first and second period, and they still can do anything. But for the most part, I think it's the not scoring on the 5-on-3, because if they score there, this game is completely different. They get some momentum, they get some confidence, and I wouldn't have been surprised if they could have found a way to tie it up.
Yeah, I agree with that, Kevin. The other thing with that too is that the team that kills off the 5-on-3, it's a big boost for them. They just keep going, find another gear, lock it down. You don't get those opportunities very often in a game, so the Canucks really had to take advantage there, and were unable to do so. That was huge.
Like, I would argue that it was a bit of both, but I think not scoring on the 5-on-3 definitely is what hampered their ability to get back into this game for sure.
No. Okay, so second periods. This has been an issue in all 3 games. It was also an issue in game 2. It seems that Vegas, I do see having an advantage. And I'm not saying the Canucks are slow. That's not what I'm saying. But it does seem Vegas seems to be at another speed level than the Canucks. And the second period has been an example of it. Last night, domination. As we talk about this, I'll pull up some stats here. But what are you seeing in the second period, and what would you like to see different, other than like the Canucks play better? What are some of your issues that you're noticing, if that makes sense?
Well, the Canucks are just they're not having the time and space again. We saw this in the first game, so they've got to simplify. They've got to find a way to get passes through. They've got to stop skating the puck into traffic. They've got to be able to possess it longer, and then those chances in the attacking zone will come. But there's just been it doesn't seem like much quickness in reacting to the fact that the time and space is so tight out there. They keep sort of trying the same things over and over and keep turning the puck over. That's kind of what I'm seeing.
Yeah, shots in the second period, by the way, were 15-7 for Vegas, and according to Natural Stat Trick, another shutout for Natural Stat Trick, they had a nice night. 9-0 in terms of high danger scoring chances, 5-on-5 in the second period.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the Canucks just need to find a way to take a breath and make the short, easy pass. It seems like they're trying too hard to get that home run pass, and they need to support the puck carrier a little bit better. When they do, then they're able to get out of the zone and start moving the puck up the ice and start to exploit the aggressive Vegas forecheck. But they aren't doing that enough. And I think in game 2 they were able to in the first period they were able to do that, but they fell off doing that in the second period. And then we saw it again last night that they weren't supporting the puck carrier enough to really be able to exploit that, make a couple quick passes and leave the aggressive Vegas forecheck looking for the puck in the corner.
Yeah, for me, it's almost a combination of the Vegas team speed just being dominant, as well as the Canucks trying to be too pretty and trying to do like one extra pass to make it like the pretty play. Yeah. So yeah, if they simplify their game, like the other guys have said, I think that they'll have a better chance of being more effective.
Yet, all of that being said, if it's just an couple inches more to the right, it was 2-1 heading into the third period. Like that last second shot by Miller, like Hughes knocks it off, Pettersson goes down. It's just it looks bad, but it doesn't, like, at the same time they're still in this, which is fascinating to me.
Yeah, I hear you there, Kevin. Like I didn't feel that discouraged watching last night because like in game 1, it sure looked like boys against men out there. I didn't think that was the case last night. I mean, the Canucks were generating some chances. They had some pretty good ones that Lehner was just really strong on. The power play still looked really good there, at least in the earlier part of the game, the way they were moving the puck around. They just weren't able to convert. But as you say, one or two of those chances go in and it's a different game. So Canucks just got to stick with it and hope to have a little more jump tonight and find a way to get that first goal, as Sean's been talking about.
Yeah, despite the Vegas Golden Knights having a significant amount of play, Jacob Markstrom's been fantastic for the Canucks.
Absolutely.
He's kept them in it. And their Canucks are still, last night they were still a bounce away from making it a completely different game. And that's what a lot of these playoff games have been. And that's what playoff hockey is you capitalize on a bad bounce, a bad play, a lucky bounce, and you can change the game, and then you ride that in-game momentum away from into a couple more goals, and that's what Vegas did. And if the Canucks can find a way to get the bounces to go their way earlier on in the game, then we could see another repeat of game 2 like this. As much as I felt like the second period and third periods were like maybe the 2 key periods of the series, I could be completely wrong on that if the Canucks can come back and find a way to get a couple quick goals tonight and be able to win game 4. So it's going to be very interesting. This is the key game in this series. If the Canucks go down 3-1, it's all but over, I think, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. But if they can come back and tie it up, then it's an absolute coin toss.
Yeah, then it's down to a best of 3 at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. To focus a little bit on the defense, I'm going to ask what you think of Quinn Hughes. I'm not picking on Quinn Hughes, but this hasn't been the same Quinn Hughes that we saw against Minnesota or St. Louis. I think this is partially because you're facing a much better team, and also probably a learning curve for Quinn Hughes. I think, is that fair to say?
Well, they're keying on him very, very intensely. They know that if they that's why the Canucks need to support their puck carrier better. When they did score and they were making big plays in game 2, they were doing that. So they were supporting the puck carrier. They were giving Quinn Hughes an easy outlet pass, whether it's in the offensive zone or defensive zone or neutral zone. So Quinn Hughes was able to make that pass, and then later on in the play, hit the play, it would open up for him to be able to use his skating as a weapon against the Vegas defense. But early on in the plays right now, they're Vegas is keying in on Quinn Hughes very effectively, and that's taking away one of the Canucks' top weapons. It is a learning curve for him, but this is a learning curve for the whole team more than anything else, in my opinion.
Yeah, they're definitely being very effective as far as shutting him down and making him probably second guess himself. And being a rookie, that's going to play into your head more than if you're a 5-6 seasoned veteran at that point.
At some point, Kev, Quinn Hughes was going to run into a tough matchup there and not be able to be the dominant self that we were used to seeing. And here it is against Vegas. So, he's a crafty, smart defenseman. For a Canuck fan, you just gotta maintain some faith that he'll find a way to break through and find a way to counter what Vegas is throwing at him in terms of pressure.
I'll say this again. We've said this a few times. Very clear that they missed Tyler Myers.
Mm-hmm.
As much as he took a lot of heat during the regular season, it's very clear now what his value is. It looks like there's a possibility he could go tonight. Possibility. I'm not saying, I'm not saying a percentage. So I think that will help. My proposal is still take Fantenberg out and go with Ben and Stecher as your bottom 2, your 5-6. I don't know where everyone else is on that, or if that's still your move. Or
I'd take Ben out, unfortunately, for everyone who loves his beard. Yeah, I think Ben's the odd man out right now in the on the Canucks blue line. Fantenberg's played a lot, very, very steady, and is one of the better. He's part of the penalty kill. I think that's a key thing here. If Tyler Myers is able to go, the top 4 doesn't change of Edler, Stecher, and Hughes and Tanev, and then you have Fantenberg, Myers, and that's. But you have to remember that Travis Green's very dynamic with how he deploys players. In games 5 and 6,
my water, even though we're
in games 5 and 6 with in the St. Louis series, people applauded him and for how dynamic he was with his forward lines, but he's been doing that all season with the defense.
Yeah.
Tyler Myers may start the game as the quote unquote third pair defenseman, but he in offensive zone attacking roles, he plays with Quinn Hughes. In defensive zone times, he plays with Fantenberg and Edler at times as well. So I don't think it's as structured as that, and that's why I think you end up going with Fantenberg over Ben in the lineup, because I feel like Travis Green has a much more just feels a little more comfortable with Fantenberg in the lineup than Jordy Ben, especially on the left side. I actually feel that Jordy Ben plays a lot better on the right side than he does on his natural left side, which is different than most defensemen.
Yeah, on this, I would agree that it's, if Myers comes back, it's likely that Ben is out and Fantenberg is in. I mean, I think over the course of the season, Fantenberg earned that higher ranking, so to speak, on the defense. But I do want to praise Jordy Ben. I mean, I think he stood in and performed very well and has been smart with the puck and has maintained some stability back there. But he just doesn't offer the same thing that Tyler Myers does. Certainly not offensively, anyways. But We'll see. That when the 2-day delay came about, that was one of my thoughts. Maybe that means Tyler Myers gets back in this series sooner than we thought. So, of course, with very limited media access to these kinds of things and towels being put over the stick rack before the game, we won't know until the warm up starts whether Myers is a possibility, and we won't know until the final lineups are submitted.
And Travis Green is working on building some sort of device to go over top of the stick, so you can't even tell what the height of the sticks are.
Yeah.
When Tyler Myers comes in, that stick you're going to have a little bit of a peak.
Yes.
That towel at some point, or he'll have two sticks on either end, of Myers sticks on either end, so it levels it out.
I know there's a Willie Mitchell practice stick joke in there somewhere.
Yes.
That was great. I was at that game. That was definitely one of my favorite highlights is live watching.
And just his stoic face too, just skating around.
But to get back on topic,
wrong.
though, I have to agree with both Sean and Tyler that I would actually say Spantenberg stays in and Ben comes out, and not to piggyback off of their points, but I agree for the same points that they have already made.
Okay, I'll sit in the minority. What about, let me just toss one more name. Is there any chance Troy Stecher's out of the lineup?
No, he's been one of the best defensemen on the.
I'm just asking.
Kevin, no. Honestly,
here's Kevin trying to make issues out of non-issues again.
But honestly, Kevin, he's been
that agitator.
He's honestly been one of the best defensemen in this series ever since Tyler Myers went down. For the most part, Troy Stecher has been an absolute stud top 4 defenseman for the Canucks.
He's definitely been the most it's a wrong word. He's grown. He's taken a huge step in these playoffs for sure. I think
he's played more 5-on-5. He's played more 5-on-5 ice time than Quinn Hughes this series.
No,
only Edler has more. Troy Stecher has taken a gigantic step forward in showing that he can be a top 4 defenseman. I still think he's best suited as a 4-5, but it's just he's done an admirable job filling in for Tyler Myers. Not to get too far off track here, but when I look at top 4 defensemen, I want them to bring something different to the table. Quinn Hughes is an offensive dynamo. Chris Tanev is a defensive wizard. You got Tyler Myers. His size and ability to move the puck it sets him apart. Edler does it all really well, and can play physical. As we saw last night, too bad they actually scored later on in the play, but because he just absolutely just destroyed someone. I can't remember who it was on Vegas, but Troy Stecher doesn't have that. That X factor? What does he bring to that's different to the top 4, unfortunately? And I think that's why he's always been sort of labeled as a number 5 in Travis Green's book. But he's been so I am very, very impressed with what he's brought to this Canucks team in these playoffs.
And he has a couple of goals, at least 2 goals anyways in the playoffs here. And almost had one last night. It was just sitting on the ice between the legs of Leonard, just wouldn't get through.
I was just asking. I'm the Antoine Roussell of this podcast.
Yes, you are, sir. Yes.
Except I do not speak French.
And Sean is the bear you don't poke.
Yeah, apparently. Hi, Ryan. Okay, I guess the other issue we need to bring up is Brock Boeser, and I don't know how to bring this up. That it kind of how to facilitate this in a sense, because there's going to be people that are going to criticize him for his play, but at the same time, he's been playing with a really unbelievably heavy heart. We learned last night, according to Twitter, that his cousin passed away. He's been dealing with his father having health issues. There's been a lot, and then there was a an issue with his friend that he's during was it the Minnesota series? We if that was.
Well, the Minnesota series part with we're talking about Brock Boeser. His friend passed away due to a car crash years ago. Back when he was in August, and he was playing in the Ivan Holinka tournament, and he was away, so he wasn't able to do anything. And he literally scored on that game. And yeah, Boeser didn't look at his best last night, but the outside of Elias Pettersson, none of the Canucks did. JT Miller looks a step behind, or just not at JT Miller top end JT Miller. Bo Horvat wasn't great. Tanner Pearson wasn't great. So picking out Brock Boeser, I think is just his name just seems to be at the top of the mind of all Canucks fans, because I get my guess is because of the stupid trade rumors or trade
that whole
trade talks that happened right before the playoffs started. I think it's dumb. Like, I know we had the one of the big questions going into the off season is going to be how do they improve this team, and how do they improve the blue line, which I think definitely needs to be improved a little bit. But I don't know why you're picking out Brock Boeser out of the group at this point. I think it might be also because he's not scoring at the rate that we expect him to, but his overall game is so solid. He's going in, he's getting in on the forecheck, and he's being strong on the puck. And he's being a very underrated playmaker on whichever line he's on. Like, I think it's time that we move on from Brock Boeser being just a pure Brett Hull type sniper. He's not. He's a better player, like a more well-rounded player than we were expecting. And he's not just a pure sniper. He's an overall all-round forward, and he's got one hell of a shot, but his passing and playmaking is something that people need to start paying attention to. His willingness to get in the dirty areas and play and grind out the cycle is something I think fans need to start looking at, and media need to be looking at. He's not the most physical player. He's not going to go in and throw a massive hit, even though he has the body to do it. That's the one thing I'd love to see him take a step forward on at this point, but that's also not necessarily his game. So I don't think it's fair to single him out like some have throughout these playoffs.
So just before Tyler and Chris, I just want to give his line from last night was 4 shots on goal, 2 hits, 1 giveaway, 18:39 total ice, minute 46 power play. Actually, that's to me that's a pretty good line. Actually, I haven't really I guess from my perspective, I guess I know people have been critical of him. But really, I guess just I haven't been super unhappy. Like, I don't think he's been that terrible in these playoffs at all. I think he's been taking more heat than he deserves. I'm kind of with Sean there, but
yeah, I totally agree. I feel like everyone just saw his first season as a rookie and thought that he was going to be, like Sean said, this Brett Hull type sniper, but he has developed into a more 200-foot game, and I guess his offense has dipped because of that, but he's, like Sean said, again, he is an overall better player because of it. So I think it's undue criticism.
I think, Boeser is one of the star players for the team, and so the fans have the expectation that there's going to be offensive production every night. And so, and Boeser is not as good as Petey, and he's not the captain like Horvat, and so I think sort of by default sometimes he becomes an easy target for people to vent their frustrations.
At the same time, as maybe we'll blend this into line combinations, do you think they need to keep the Lotto line on more consistently than they have?
No, if we're gonna get into line combinations now, like I think what Travis Green has done is good, but I do think that you need to get Pettersson with Boeser. I like Pearson with Pettersson. I think they actually work well together, and I think Miller actually works better with Horvat than Pearson does. So if I'm building the top six now, I've got Miller, Horvat, Toffoli. Miller and Toffoli have a much better chemistry than I think people remember from the 10 games in the regular season. It was Miller and Toffoli that were driving that line more than Pettersson was. And Pettersson and Boeser have a much better chemistry in terms of Pettersson was the one that with all the primary assists on Boeser's goals, and in terms of primary assists for Toffoli's goals, it was JT Miller more often than not. So like I said, Miller, Horvat, Toffoli, Pearson, Pettersson, and Boeser, and you see what that does. I think you put you're creating up two very good lines that can match up against or even play better and get the better of the top six of Vegas with that setup, and then you go from there. And then for me, as I said earlier on in this, it's time for Roussell to sit. I think he needs to sit, and they need to tell him, and he needs to knock it off. Like he's made himself more of a distraction than anything else. And you bring in Zach McEwen, and you put Jake Virtanen on his off wing where he actually can. He's proven he can play there, and you see what you can do. Mott, Gaudette, and Sutter on one line, I think, and then leaves Virtanen, Beagle, and McEwen as a full on just throw your body around fast fourth line that can match up against the Ryan Reeves line. I think that would work really well.
Myself, I like it when Miller and Petey are playing together, but you do have to have a good balance there with the top two lines. So I'm not sure that is the answer. I do like Miller playing with Petey for face-off purposes. And I don't have anything against a line of Horvat centering Pearson and Toffoli, but Sean pointed out very well, kind of why that's maybe not the best option. Agree on McEwen in for Roussell as well. But do something. Got to change something. Got to throw a different wrinkle at them tonight. Can't come back with status quo. I don't think that's sufficient if you're the coach.
Yeah, I'm not super picky as far as who's playing with who on the top two lines, as long as they can be effective. My point is more so we need to switch up the bottom six, and that's where this whole bringing Zach McEwen thing is going to be a critical change, I think, for tonight, and hopefully he can make it the impact that I'm hoping he's going to make.
I do want to throw a question out there for the group and ask where we're at with Adam Gaudette. I'd like him to stay, but I mean he's one of the guys that wasn't in there before, so that's something that the coach would maybe consider as well.
If you wanted Gaudette out, who would you bring in his stead? If we're already bringing in Zach McEwen,
well, it would be McEwen in, and Roussell would stay as well.
Okay.
I hope not. I hope he stays. I think he's played well enough to stay in the lineup. He adds a dimension to that second power play unit. They were unlucky not to score a couple times last night too. And having him and Jake Virtanen on that second power play unit with Brock Boeser, you've got some real good firepower on that second unit that the Vegas Golden Knights can't ignore. And I think that's something that they need to keep going. And I've liked his game. I've liked his game through since he's come back. I don't think he needs to come out at all. Like I said, if I'm pulling anyone out, it's Antoine Roussell and everyone. I don't think there's anyone else that I think deserves to be pulled out at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. Gaudette stays in.
Yeah, I think Gaudette stays. I just think like if we do the McEwen Roussell thing, and that the obvious change will be Gaudette for Eriksson. I don't see them bringing in doing any wild card things at this point. I think at the very least, even like in terms of if effectiveness, Gaudette would be more effective, but Gaudette also doesn't deserve to be out of the lineup. I think he's been one of the better forwards, not named Pettersson. So, I put that on the same line as Stecher. I mean, I don't see it. I mean, so, but that could happen, but I really really doubt it. My other question though is, do we see Travis Green possibly? We saw him do this a little bit in St. Louis, but is there a possibility we see a double shifting to Pettersson tonight?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
In a must-win game like this, yeah.
Yes, it's a back-to-back, whatever. But you can't look like if they lose this game, this series is all but over. So you've got to play like this is a must-win game, and so you got to play your top players as much as possible. So I definitely see Pettersson and Hughes getting a lot of ice time tonight.
Yeah. I see more likely than Gaudette being out, I guess. But yeah, I agree. I do agree. I think the McEwen Roussell move would be the right one there. Is there anything else on this game that we have not talked about yet?
I wanted to go back just in regards to the whole Roussell 10-minute misconduct thing and the suggestion of a statement from the officials after the game. This is one of those areas where, the league's got the 5-second delay in for a reason to censor out words that shouldn't be for public consumption in their view. And I think that, when you're issuing a 10-minute misconduct to a player and there doesn't seem to be anything obvious happening, visually, physically to warrant that, it makes you wonder what kind of words are being exchanged out on the ice. So, if they come out with a statement, say he was assessed a 10-minute misconduct for verbal abuse, then the question is, well, what did he say? And then if they don't offer, any insight there, then you get the vacuum filled with speculation. So I could see why the league is reluctant to even go down that path at all. They'd rather just kind of keep it in-house, which goes on. I mean, we've had the between the bench commentator now for 15 years, and we've heard in interviews with Pierre Maguire and Glenn Healy and Brian Boucher and guys that are down there that there's a lot of stuff that gets said that doesn't make it to air. So I just wanted to comment on that. I don't think it's feasible for the league to be that transparent with why they're issuing 10-minute misconducts, which is too bad it's like that, but there's reasons for that.
It's a Pandora's box you don't want to open, in other words.
I understand that, but I still think they need to do it. To me, like, if they say it was verbal abuse, fine. Like, you take that at face value. Like, I think you have, like, yes, you're going to have people that are going to want to know exactly what he said, but if they literally say it was for verbal abuse as opposed to hugging or a cross check that happens every single almost every single face off, that little cross check as they're trying to get position is it. Come on, like, yeah, I think it looks better than just like this, like what, like what, why did he get a 10-minute misconduct for something that happens almost every face off? How many times have we seen like people like players even like push the other player's skate out, which is almost like
that's dangerous.
That's a dangerous play, and they don't get called for it. Like, come on, like, it's just, I would much rather see that than this, like, oh my God, I have no idea. Like, I want to see them like actually just step up and tell us what it was for. Like, you can't just say it's 10-minute misconduct for, like, just tell us why. Just tell that. I don't need to know the gory details, but tell us why.
Like, did you issue a warning and he didn't respond? Something like that, I think, would make it. I think it just, to me, speaks to the overall lack of communication that we have, especially in comparison to the NFL or even the NBA or even when the CFL, and why a referee is making the rulings that they are. I think as a fan and as a watcher, it's really tough to understand where they're coming from. And I think that whole process needs to be improved. And again, I think Sportsnet and NBC, I think both of whoever's carrying the TV rights, I think needs to bring in an official analyst, a former referee, as part of their their podium analysts, their between the or even during the game as one of the other analysts. I don't know if you'll be able to do that, have 3 during COVID times.
No, it probably makes sense for a studio component, but
But a studio audience or just something, that element needs to be put in there for the fan experience. I just that's part of the problem. Because, and you know what, people are going to complain anyway, right? People are still going to complain about, you know, oh, I can't believe he said that and he's getting a 10-minute misconduct. You know, fans are going to complain about that, right? So, but it's still important to understand where this comes from and why this happens. Like, I just think there's a lot there. It's a lack of lack of transparency and just a lack of information, I think.
TSN tried this in the past when they had the rights. They had Kerry Fraser. I don't know how often they had him on during games that they broadcast, but you know, they had Kerry Fraser there. But one of the criticisms of Kerry Fraser, and I tend to agree with it, is you know, he's still partial to his former colleagues that are still officiating. Now there's fewer of them as time has gone on, but if you're going to have that kind of analysis on a broadcast, you need to have the officiating analyst be, you know, no holds barred with their analysis. I don't think we got that in the past with Kerry Fraser, and I think sometimes in the NFL they're reluctant to kind of really go after the referees over something that they got wrong.
Well, you don't even have to go after them, though. You just explain what's going on.
Like, I think what I'm trying to get at is, like, when we talk with you, Tyler, you explain the whole process of, well, maybe this is what happened and that. If they go through the whole process of like with this Roussell one, if they go through the whole process of like he was constantly doing this, we didn't feel like it was adding anything to the game. We warned him. We warned him multiple times to knock it off, and he didn't. So we gave him the 10-minute misconduct, or whatever. Like, tell the story. I don't need the details. I don't need the gory intense details. I just need the story as to why they came to that decision. Like, and especially with it, like it doesn't necessarily, like I said, it doesn't need to be a ref the refs having to go up onto the podium in a Zoom call or a press conference once things get back to quote unquote normal. It just find a way to tell the story as to why you made the call that you did. And I think that would go a super long way to informing the fans who can't see that and aren't privy to the to what happens on the ice, because we're watching from in the stands or even in from on TV. So I do think that something needs to change in terms of that. And I think what was it the NBA does their reports, and I think that's fair. I think you can do that. Like these officials are not going to be perfect, and as much as we want them to be, as long as they own up to, like, yes, we could have called this differently, like looking back, I think it would open things up hugely, honestly, to a lot of fans. And yes, you're still gonna have detractors, but no matter what you do, you're gonna have people complaining. That's just the way reality is now. And so might as well try and do something different than just stick with the status quo and just have everyone upset.
If you want good officiating analysis, I think you need to have the guy in the rink where you can see the entire playing surface at all times and watch the game like an evaluator would, where, yeah, you're watching the game, but you're spending most of your time watching what the officials are doing and critiquing, you know, their positioning and their judgment and everything, right? So if you had that, you know, somebody, you know, sitting up in the press box watching the game, you know, they would be able to pick up on a lot more of the little things that are going on and be able to explain a situation like Roussell. If you put that guy in the studio, they're like the rest of us. They only see what comes across on the telecast. It's not a full picture.
Yeah, it would be something that's good, especially for the playoffs. I mean, I look back even and we talked about this already, so sorry for those that are regular listener and repeating this, but you look back even at the Flames Carolina game in February, where we all thought that goal was offside until we went to the first intermission, and it was Brian Burke that explained, because he talked to Toronto and basically explained why that was a good call. Like, it just, that kind of information, I think just helps us a little bit. That's all.
Mhm.
That, but that's a drum that I will stand and beat on. And by the way, if they do bring one, when he retires, it has to be Wes McCauley, right?
Yeah, I would think so. Well, I was gonna say you need someone with a little personality. You need someone who's not afraid to say what he means, and we can use this to transition into just another fantastic night for Kevin Bieksa. The more I watch, the more I realize what he brings to that panel is just, he relaxes the panel. Like, he relaxes the panel, and now it's like you're watching very smart people talk at the bar about hockey. Like, that's really what it is now. And what he creates a relaxed atmosphere that allows them to banter back and forth. They're not as stiff and like afraid of what exactly they're saying, and it just it instead of like having like, okay, the intermission's off, and you walk away, you go to the washroom, you grab another drink or get some food or not, but you're not paying attention at all to what's going on in the intermission. You're actually staying and watching the intermission now, because he's made it entertaining again. So when you bring someone like an ex-official on, you need him to have some sort of personality and be willing to trade barbs with Kevin Bieksa, because that would be, again, more entertainment. Kevin Bieksa and a ref on a panel together. Come on, we all want to see that.
Well, if it's not Wes McCauley, how about Tim Peel? I mean, he's a bit of a character out there, and I think he would have fun. Tim's one of the guys, because I think he's been in trouble for this actually, but I think he's one of the officials that would really embrace the idea of getting to talk to the media. I think he's the kind of guy that gets a lot of flack from fans, and if he had the opportunity to explain himself a little more, I think people would find him a little more human.
Chris, did you have anything to add before I jump in front of you?
I was just going to say that Kevin Bieksa has a great ability to break down plays, and actually that's the thing that I appreciate the most about his intermission little bits.
Yeah, that's a great point. Like, I play hockey as a forward. I don't know anything about defense, really. Never played the position. So to hear him sort of explain it in easy to understand terms, what's going on from the back end and that perspective is always very educational.
As much as I want to give a shout out to Kevin Bieksa, and I agree with everything that has been said there, I also want to give a shout out to Anthony Stewart. I think he's gotten a lot better at this as he's gone on. I really enjoyed that debate last night in the first intermission between Bieksa and Stewart, and that it's about time that we at least everyone is kind of just taking their own little sections, is like, okay, you're watching this guy, and I totally understand from a analytic point of view why you're doing that, but just to have that banter between Bieksa and Stewart and say, okay, this is what I saw and this is what Bieksa saw. And Stewart has like a very quick, dry wit that it's starting to grow on me. I don't know. I'm starting to really enjoy. Maybe I'm in the minority, but I'm starting to really enjoy Anthony Stewart on the panel, and especially when BX is on, I feel like he's, again, that's because BX is bringing out that comfort as well for everybody. But I think that Anthony Stewart is as he's gone along here, he's really growing in a positive way on me.
Yeah, he just needs to be a little more polished. But otherwise, I mean, I think he's bringing something to the panel for sure. And, it's kind of neat to see how there's two different perspectives on the same play. I mean, that's hockey for you. There's often a series of different things that go wrong that lead to a goal against. And they kind of illustrated that really nicely, I thought.
Yeah. And then on Twitter, Justin Bourne commented on it. And he's another guy I want to see get more airtime and more TV time, because he's a very smart guy, and he was the video coach for the Toronto Marlies for a while, and I really enjoy him talking hockey. He had a podcast a few years back, back before the Score became Sportsnet and everything. So I want to see him more. He's done some regional broadcasts and been fantastic, but they need to give him get him on with Bieksa where they can have this talk just like Bieksa and Anthony Stewart did. But he talked about how whoever is right in that discussion is subjective, and yeah, he thinks it was Beagle, the F3, that should have been in charge of making sure that Tuck didn't get that pass and everything. But yeah, I think it is something that I think needs to be. We need more of that discussion and more banter back and forth of like, okay, what do you think, and be able to see that, because then you actually see how complicated and complex hockey can be. It's not just so straightforward. Oh well, it was Edler's fault, or oh my, just everyone, because it just seems like everyone seems to have sometimes it's a piling on effect, especially on social media. Once someone of note makes the opinion of whose fault it was every time for a goal.
One other comment too is there seems to be, like Sean commented on how BX is sort of loosening some of the stiffness that we've seen from the panel in the past, but it doesn't seem like egos are getting in the way much these days either with the panel. When Nick Kyprios was there, I mean, great analyst, but didn't like his points being challenged very often, and and then Kelly Rudy's been around and doing the panel for 22 years now or something like that. Like so I mean,
In that long
so they've been button heads, at times, and it became a bit of awkward television as opposed to good debate. So I think they got the right mix of personalities here. People that don't take themselves too seriously, and there is some banter and some debate, and and then they all like to give Ron a bit of a tough time as well.
If you get a chance, I don't know if anyone saw that, but did anyone see Elliot Friedman try to break down Semyon
Oh,
Varlamov's goaltending?
that was fantastic.
That was just
weird, awkward, but fantastic.
So, Kelly, you stay quiet. We don't need you in this segment.
Well, that was the thing, is that he knew he was going to screw it up in some way, but he tried his best, and you could just see Bieksa and Rudy just snickering at his attempt, and it was quite entertaining.
Yeah, that was fun. All I want to just see a little bit more Carolyn Cameron, I think, and not not just because I find her attractive, but she just has a really good personality for that as well too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I think they've got a good bunch of hosts coming up. I think it's Ron MacLean is a bit of an institution in Canada, but I think it's time for him to move on. David Amber's really good. Jeff Merrick's really good. I don't think people realize how good of a host Jeff Merrick is. I think he's another person who doesn't take himself too seriously, and him and Bieksa would be fantastic together.
Oh, yeah.
And then, Carolyn Cameron's really good as well. So they do have a good group of hosts that can step up. And I think I would, again, I know Ron MacLean's an institution, but I would really like him to step down from the Hockey Night in Canada, the Saturday games, and just focus in on hometown hockey. Him and Tara Sloan do a fantastic job with that, and the storytelling that they do. And I think that's where his strength is.
Yeah.
And let Amber take over the early games, and then Carolyn Cameron and or Jeff Merrick for the late games on starting next season. I would really love to see that.
Yeah, that's something I would agree as well. Well, Chris, Tyler, we haven't had a chance to, like, Sean, Heidi, and I did a podcast on Thursday, kind of going through what we were feeling through. The word was used boycott, but I've heard used delay, pause, whatever you want to use. I just wanted to give you the floor and the opportunity just to kind of tell us how you're feeling, where you were at, what your thoughts were on everything, and kind of just give you the floor. Maybe we'll start with Chris.
The word that I had heard more often was strike, which I feel is a little bit more fitting, but basically they're doing it for a cause. I thought it was very worthy of them to do that. Obviously, Wednesday night, it kind of was a bad PR night for the NHL in the sense that they did play the games and they only had like a 4-second moment of silence for it. So it definitely wasn't a good look on Wednesday night. But the showing of solidarity that especially the Western bubble teams did during that press conference, I thought was really powerful. And there was I think it was Thomas Drance who tweeted a photo of it where it was the expanded wide shot. It wasn't just like 20 players behind the team representatives. It was all 4 teams, or at least pretty damn close to. It was like wall to wall and like 4 or 5 rows deep. So the fact that all those players decided that, you know what, I'm going to show up as a form of solidarity, I thought that was really awesome. And yeah, they had a bad PR night, but I think that what they ended up doing to make up for it was worthy.
Yeah, picking up on that. I mean, it is the old better late than never philosophy there. But yeah, the Wednesday night didn't look good for the NHL at all. I mean, they did the thing before the Eastern game, the Tampa Boston game, but then nothing before the Colorado Dallas game. Didn't mention it at all. You had the Alain Vigneault comments about how he's not paying attention to the outside world and he's getting flack for that and all kinds of critique. The really big one, of course, was most of the Sportsnet on-air personalities criticizing that the games are going on. Very rare to see a league partner do that. Good for Sportsnet and their brass for getting behind their people and not disciplining them for those kinds of comments.
And props to Kelly Rudy for having the cojones to say that on air.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, a few of them had comments. I mean, Christine Simpson commented on it. Craig Simpson commented on it. There was a few of them that criticized the idea of playing games that night.
Elliot Friedman did too.
Yeah. But there's a few things with this. What it ended up being, to me, looks like, the players took the 2-day break in a lot of ways just to not look bad. They were kind of like, it kind of feels like they were forced into it in some respects, which, I don't think that's, what we want to see. I think we want to see a genuine message, a genuine protest of some sort to really have an impact. I'm not sure there's going to be much impact from this. The other thing is, we have players of color, but where are the American ones? Like I'd love to see Seth Jones out in front of this and more involved, and he's been quiet on that. I mean, great for Reeves and Evander Kane and Matt Dumba in particular, but where are the other guys? I think a guy like a Seth Jones has to be more front and center on this. He is an actual African American player. He's a very good player, young. I think that he's one of the guys that needs to kind of be at the forefront of this whole thing. The other thing is I think people need to recognize that the NHL is a different sort of demographic than the other leagues. I mean, most of the players are not American. They would definitely prefer to stay out of political topics if they can. I know people would say, well, this isn't political. Well, it's still in that realm. It's outside of what they normally do as a professional athlete. So, I think you have to cut the players some slack for their reluctance to step into it. They did do it eventually. I agree with Chris. I think what they did to try to make up for it looked really good. The unity that was on display in the Western Hub. I thought the video that was shown before the game last night was great. But they shouldn't be doing this just to look good and just because the other sports leagues are doing that. I don't think being a copycat is the point we're trying to make here. I mean, it needs to be genuine, but at least it was player driven in the end. I think, there was some criticism on the Wednesday night that the league didn't step in and shut it down. Well, it's got to be player driven.
Yeah, all the other leagues, it was player driven.
Yeah.
And the other props that I just wanted to give as well was brain fart. Totally just lost the entire thread I was going on. So I will relinquish.
I think it was at least what drove it all. The Canucks in Vegas was genuine. with everyone, all the other teams, I don't know. But I feel like the Canucks and Vegas, that the ones that were driving the bus on this more than the other teams, felt genuine to me. And it, to me, it felt right. And yes, as Tyler said, it's a different demographic. It's a very predominantly white league. They're in a bubble. As bad as the Elaine Vigneault comments are, if you actually think about it and actually look into what, like, his statement that he made afterwards, it makes sense the why he wasn't really. They had a back-to-back. They played in the afternoon. They had a back-to-back. As soon as he was done doing it at the rink and all the media availability, because I don't think that there was any really. I don't know if he was asked about it at all after the game on Wednesday, because they played in the afternoon before really all this got set into motion. And then he went back to like you said, he went back to the hotel, had a drink, and then just went into work mode and started to figure out what's going on for the next game. And like, I think if you look back at your history, at your work history and all that, how many times have you've had a project or something that you needed to get done, and so you just tuned everything else out and then went and did it, and then you come back and you've got something big happened, or that could have happened, right? You were out of touch with what was going on because you were so focused on that. I think he deserves a little bit of slack of that based off of that, but how he said it and how he explained it was wrong, and he should have. I wish he had said it better. And then with the league, same thing. I think with the ball got rolling in the NBA really quickly because they've lived through it, and they're very. For a lot of them are very passionate about this movement, while in the NHL it's a predominantly white league that they haven't lived through it, and they don't. No matter how much you can empathize with what's going on, you can't really know exactly how passionate and emotional and raw the feeling is for a lot of people on this. And it just, it took them that extra day to get there. Mm-hmm. And yes, it would have been awesome for them to be able to get there earlier, and they should have. I can understand why, and as much as we want them to be to get there earlier and be on par with the NBA and MLS and MLB with that, I can understand why it took them a little bit longer, but they got there, and they were able to make a big, strong, united stance towards a very important cause.
And in terms of the whole demographic point that you guys made earlier, Ryan Reeves even acknowledged that in his little speech that he made at the podium, that this is a predominantly white league, and the fact that they're willing to be here and act and like show up in the numbers that they did, that it's an act of solidarity and that he respects the hell out of them for it. So, yeah.
Yeah, I Heidi mentioned this on Wednesday, and I think you guys are saying this in the same way, and Tyler especially with the Seth Jones comment. It's not so much about the teams in the bubble; it's what the teams do outside of the bubble and what they're going to do after that. I think that is also really important, and and who gets involved and how the organizations and everyone else gets involved. And I think the other thing that I think is getting a little bit forgotten about this is the ball wasn't rolling. Like, the boycott started when the Bucks decided that at 1:00 our time out here, Tyler and I's time out here, but the Toronto Raptors and the Boston Celtics were already in talks about boycotting Game 1. Before this was even happening. So that ball and the thought process in the NBA was already there, where the NHL wasn't at that particular point in time. So, and that's a really, like, there was no talk of the NHL doing any boycotting at this particular point in time. And you can have your own opinion if you think that that's right or wrong of what the NHL should have been doing. Fair points, I guess, either way, I guess, if you want to look at that. But sort of how this got built, the NBA it didn't all of a sudden just happen. The Milwaukee Bucks didn't just all of a sudden do this. There was a process that got started that the NHL was not on by the time everything happened. So, and that's, I do think that that's an important clarification that I think is getting a little bit missed in this, in my mind. But yeah. But you can also listen to Sean, Heidi, and I discuss that. We put that up on YouTube and it's on Facebook, and I didn't set the audio for that, but I'll be doing that today as well. And then finally, Tyler on hockeypodcast.com, he has written, I think he's written 2 now. He's our resident writer right now.
Well, I'm not on during the week with you guys, so I gotta put it on paper somehow and get the thoughts put together every couple of weeks.
Yeah, so tell us kind of what you were thinking and what you were.
Yeah, just it's kind of fun to be writing again. Used to do that a lot when I was an actual broadcaster. It's there's just different things I observe watching the games. Obviously, I'm watching the Canucks a lot closer than the other series, but in particular, anytime I can provide some analysis on the officiating and hopefully some insight for people, that's kind of the goal there. And then obviously my thoughts on how the Canucks are doing and some of the other random topics covered off in the last blog, the whole Canada's team narrative and whether we think that's appropriate or not. I know lots being made about the schedule and TV interests, and wanted to comment on that as well. So it's a bit of a random collection of thoughts in the blog, but I'd like to do it every 2 to 3 weeks, just to get a few things together, and hopefully people find it thought provoking.
Yeah, it was a good write. Everyone should be going to hockeypodcast.com. It's there, and you can read it.
Yeah.
Anything else we need to discuss before we sign off?
Just let's hope that the Canucks come out strong tonight. Get a goal or 2 early, and can maybe repeat game 2. They as I said earlier, this is a very key game, almost the make or break game for the Canucks in this series. And we can go from, and then if they can win, we can enjoy what will likely be a 7-game series. Yeah, it's big. This will be a huge test again for the team. We have to remember this team. The team's core is very young, and they're learning how to play against the top end playoff teams. And it's not going to be easy. It's not going to be smooth sailing. And but they're looking good. For overall, they are making progress. And this has been a very, very fun run so far, and hopefully we can see them win tonight and continue showing the growth that they have throughout these playoffs.
Yeah, I agree with Sean's points, but I'm also going to add that we're playing with house money at this point. No one expected us at the start of this season to be in the second round of the playoffs. So just people have to kind of keep that in mind and not get too over the top in reactions on, like, if we end up losing this series to Vegas, that it's not the end of the world, and that we have to, fire the head coach or get rid of Benning, or, Vancouver Twitter doing Vancouver Twitter things.
Absolutely. I mean, if the Canucks don't advance beyond this round, I mean, what a ride this has been. It's provided us feels like a couple of months of entertainment. It's not actually been that long yet, but it's been both entertaining for the fans and something that's needed at a time where everything's weird out there, but also great learning experience for the team to build off of going forward into the next couple of years.
For sure. All right, let's end it there. How do we follow everyone?
I am Beardy Canuck 03 on Twitter and Instagram.
And I'm on Twitter at TNoble, TNOBLE.
I am at Schneids on most social media.
Heidi is Hyde Amazeballs. Devin Gordhow 09, where you will see pictures of his dog. and you will see Heidi talk about thrift shopping in Calgary as well. You're into that. I am KEVOLE on Twitter, podcast_hockey. If you're on YouTube and you enjoy this video, please click that subscribe button. That would be great. Facebook.com hockey podcast. If you're watching on there, thank you very much. Shout out. I forgot to shout out. Make sure we shout out Noble Nation, who I do believe joined us today. And of course, subscribe on iTunes, Google, iHeartRadio, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. We will be back. At least Sean and I, and Bryce will be back tomorrow morning, Monday morning, to recap game 4. Game 4. 1, 2, 3. Game 4 of the Canucks Golden Knights tomorrow morning around the same time we started, around 9 o'clock Pacific, 10 o'clock Mountain. And thanks everyone for watching, and we will talk to you all very soon. Bye for now.